When you think of a president, a leader of nations, you picture strength, resolve, courage under pressure. But behind closed doors, some of America's most powerful leaders wrestled with fears that feel deeply human. Fears that haunt the mind, even when you run a nation. This is the hidden side of power. This is the story of presidents and their phobias. Let's start at the beginning. George Washington, the first man to hold the highest office in America. He led armies, shaped a nation, and stared down empires. But behind that iron will lay a fear that seems strangely ordinary. The fear of being buried alive. In the late 1700s, medical science was nowhere near what it is today. Death was often declared on sight. Washington, aware of how uncertain such a declaration could be, left strict instructions. Do not lock me away. Do not seal the coffin too soon. Wait at least 3 days to ensure I'm really gone. It's almost surreal. The man who redefined leadership, who carried a newborn nation on his shoulders, afraid of his own tomb. Next, we jump ahead to another chapter in American history. Franklin D. Roosevelt, the man who guided the country through economic collapse and World War. The fireside chat voice of hope. Behind that voice, however, lurked deep-rooted fears, the kind that don't suit the Oval Office. Roosevelt suffered from triskaidekaphobia, a fear of the number 13. He avoided traveling on Fridays if it was the 13th. He never held dinners with exactly 13 guests, and he refused to sit down with that number at his table. On top of that, he carried a dread of fire. What makes it even more haunting? This fear may have sprung from a childhood memory, seeing a relative burst into flames from a lamp accident. He would rehearse emergency escapes, sometimes dropping from his bed or chair and crawling toward the door, even as a president. So here you have it, two of the greatest leaders in American history. One terrified of being buried alive, the other haunted by fire and superstition. It gets weirder. Some presidents embraced superstitions rather than fought them. For Woodrow Wilson, 13 wasn't a curse, it was fortunate. He reportedly believed 13 was his lucky number, rearranged personal details to equal 13 letters, and even assumed 13 held magical meaning for him. Imagine the commander-in-chief, strategizing global policy, and yet trusting something as arbitrary as a number. These aren't isolated quirks or fun anecdotes. They reveal something real about power. No matter how tall a legacy, how grand a title, the people behind it remain vulnerable, shaped by childhood memories, deep-seated fears, fragile superstitions. Because fear doesn't care about history or rank. It creeps in any way. You might think holding a country together, leading armies, making life and death decisions, that would toughen a man beyond simple human fears. But maybe it only hides them better. And for each president, we can imagine private nights, sleepless hours, anxieties buried in the Oval Office wallpaper, a heart racing at imaginary fires, eyes flicking around at shadows, a quiet dread of dates, numbers, or coffins. So, what do we take from this? That fear lives in us all. Even kings of democracy can tremble. Leadership doesn't erase humanity. If anything, it magnifies it because behind the titles and speeches lies a fragile person, just like you or me. And aren't we glad they never let the fear win? Because history wasn't built by perfect people. History was shaped by real people, flawed, fearful, enduring. If you enjoyed this dive behind the facade of power, into the human fears behind the grand offices, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Because next time we dig deeper, we unearth more stories where strength meets vulnerability. More truths hidden behind the suits and speeches. Until then, remember, the bravest can still be afraid. And that's what makes their courage count.